Hey, it's Ashley. Welcome to a video all about the ending of House of Sky and Breath. Before I start, could you please take a moment to subscribe to my channel? If you've already subscribed, you are awesome. Thank you. If you're new here, I would love to have you as a subscriber. It would mean the absolute world to me. House of Sky and Breath is book 2 in the Crescent City series. Sarah J. Maas has a book deal to write at least 3 books in this series. At the very end of House and Sky Breath, there's a lot of really big reveals, and I want to break them all down for you here. First of all, if you haven't read House of Sky and Breath, what are you doing here? You need to click off because I'm going to talk all about spoilers. And go read that book first. If you want just an overall review of the book and my reaction, I'll link that up above for you. I did do a video all about that, and in that video I promised you this video where we just completely break down the ending. So that's what I'm going to do. The reason I wanted to make this video is because in book 1, House of Earth and Blood, there's a lot of world building, there's a lot of details about how the planet of Midgard works, its government, its structure, and in book 2 we basically find out that a lot of those details were lies. In order to make this as easy to understand as possible, I've broken down kind of the reveals into 4 main areas. Let's start with the first light. In House of Earth and Blood, we learn that the people of Midgard believe that they are giving over their very pure and powerful first light energy to power their cities and their technology. They go to drop centers, they make the drop, which means they come into their power, they become near immortal, and in that process they give off this very powerful pure energy called first light. And that first light is taken at the drop centers, harnessed, and goes into powering the cities and technology. That's called the Eleusinian system, and it's all a lie. Where that power actually goes is to the Asteri to feed them. Second category is this whole afterlife lie and what happens with something called second light. So when Bryce and Hunt are in the Bone Quarter, they learn that there is no beautiful afterlife in a lovely green meadow. I think what Bryce and what many people thought was that after your near immortal life, you go, if you lived a good life, you go into the Bone Quarter and it's frolicking in fields. But what it actually is you sit around in this really gloomy place. It's gray, it's misty, and so depressing, but you sit in relative comfort until your loved ones forget about you. And once your name is no longer whispered on the wind, you are fed into the dead gate. And when you are fed into the dead gate, you give off second light, which also gets harnessed and given to the Asteri to power that. The Underking, you know, if you're asking yourself, like, what's in it for him? Why does he oversee this whole afterlife system? And why does he feed the souls through the dead gate? Well, because he gets to take a little bite, a little skim off the top of that power. So he eats part of your power, and the rest of that power goes to the Asteri. Underking says, to justify this, life is a beautiful ring of growth and decay, no part left to waste. What we receive upon birth, we give back in death. Problem with this is it's not voluntary. They're pushed through this dead gate by the Underking, and they're not voluntarily giving over this second light. Similarly, it's not voluntary that they give over this first light to the Asteri. They think that they're powering their cities, and that's a big fat lie. Maybe some of it goes to power the cities, but it's actually being used by the Asteri. They're actually being farmed. They're basically batteries, very similar to the Matrix. They are being harnessed for their energy. There is an amazing passage in the book where Cormac foreshadows the idea that all of the people of Midgard, all of the Vanir, are actually slaves to the Asteri. Cormac is with Rune Danon, and they see the Hind and the Dreadwolves in Lunathian. Rune is very upset about this, but Cormac has seen this happen before. And Cormac says, this is what the Asteri do. This is Midgard's true reality. We believe we are free, we are powerful, we are near immortal, but when it comes down to it, we are all the Asteri's slaves. Their slavery comes in the form of giving over this energy, this light, to sustain their oppressors, the Asteri. There is a subplot in the book that is all about Bryce learning more about Danica's past and about who Danica is. In book 1, Bryce is starting to learn more about Danica, and that continues here in book 2. Kind of like how Bryce was starting to learn the truth of the Asteri, and then that continues in book 2 as well. It's all about uncovering these truths that you didn't know about before. That's kind of a giant theme that runs through both books, especially in this book, House of Sky and Breath. Danica is actually a bloodhound, which means she can essentially detect, sniff out family ties, bloodlines, and heritage. She inherited this trait from Murdoch, who was a dreadwolf, or is a dreadwolf, and Bryce had no idea that this was her father. Danica rejected him because he's a fairly evil creature. Danica, using this talent of hers and through her research into the history of Midgard, she learns that the shifters and the fae and the werewolves, they're all fae. They believe that they're very different groups, but in fact, they may have all shared a different planet at one point, and some of the differences, like the fact that that some of the shifters don't have pointed ears and the fae have pointed ears, that was just selective breeding on the part of the Asteri. The Asteri have fostered a belief that they are different in order to keep control over them. It's a classic divide and conquer strategy. A lot of colonial powers in our history did that. The Asteri encouraged these groups to believe they were different so that they spent time battling each other as opposed to looking at the Asteri and what was wrong with them and uniting against them. The Asteri do not want all of the Vanir to unite against them. The Asteri have a weakness, and that is they need this first light from the drop centers, and they need this second light from the dead going through the dead gates. Otherwise, they're toast. So that is the truth about who these Vanir are. And now the final truth that is revealed is who the Asteri really are. So the Asteri are eternal beings. They are parasitic life forms in that they feed off of the energy and magic generated by other creatures. And what they do is basically go around from planet to planet trying to find the optimal creatures to feed off of. Gone from planet to planet. Sometimes they just conquer and they're like, no, this is not optimal, let's move on. Other times, and more rarely, they are forced out by the population of that planet. And this is what happened with Hel. Hel actually was able to fight them off and force them out, unite against them, and get rid of them. In the case of Midgard, what happened was something that is actually very complicated. So what Regalis explains to Bryce is, your ancestors wielded the horn and another fae object that allowed them to enter this world. Regalis also says, our people built fearsome warriors in the fae world to be their army. Now, when they talk about that, they're talking about the Ilarians, those winged creatures that we know about from the ACOTAR series. It turned out that the Ilarians were what the Asteri called traitors, because instead of serving the Asteri, they united with the other fae to overthrow the Asteri. Thousands of years before the Asteri even came to Midgard, they were overthrown by the Illyrians and the Fae. This is on Parthian, which is where the ACOTAR series takes place. Okay, now the Asteri moved on, they went to other planets, they found Midgard and set Midgard up as a base. Lots of time passes, and the Asteri have not forgotten how the Fae and the Illyrians teamed up against them. The Asteri are able to lure the Fae through the rift, through the gates. They're able to travel into Midgard. And here on Midgard, there is this massive battle. What happened was the queen of the Fae, Thea, realized the Asteri's evil plan. Their evil plan was to conquer the Fae and also go on to conquer other worlds. Queen Thea and Prince Adis fall in love. He's the Prince of Hell. She's the Queen of the Fae. And the people, or the creatures of hell, have already thrown the Asteri out of their planet. And now they're uniting for this big battle on Midgard. What ends up happening is one of the 7 Asteri are killed, so now there's only 6. And the forces are able to close the rifts, close the gates, trapping the Asteri on Midgard. The horn is broken. It goes to the Luna Temple, and it is never repaired until Bryce and the events of Book 1. Now that it's repaired, the Asteri want to use Bryce to travel back so that they can get revenge on the Fae there for locking them on Midgard, and for many, many years before that, turning against them and slaughtering a bunch of turning against them and killing a bunch of their kin. With the help of the Hind, Bryce is able to get out of her restraints, and then with the help of Hunt, she is able to use the horn and a gate to escape Midgard. She's trying to go to Hell to say, hey, we need your help. But she ends up in Prythian, and that is where our book ends. That ending, I find a lot of people focus on those, like that very last chapter or so, where you find out that Bryce is actually comes from the Night Court. This is like Dusk's truth, as they call it in House of Sky and Breath. Rune Danon's eyes are similar to Rhysand's eyes, and Bryce's Star Sword is actually the sister weapon to Asriel's dagger. And that is something everyone was like mind blown. There's going to be a crossover. And I wanted to make this video so I could talk about all of the reveals in the ending, not just that reveal. There was a lot of other really detailed information given to us about the First Light, the Second Light, the Asteri, and the Vanir. And so I hope this video was helpful and interesting. I hope it helped you wrap your mind around all the different reveals that we were given in House of Sky and Breath. If you did find it helpful or interesting, can you please give it a thumbs up, a like? That would mean the world to me. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. In the meantime, happy reading. I hope to see you again soon. This is Ashley saying goodbye.